He is truly wise who has traveled far and knows the ways of the world. Viking proverb. We just got our Viking cruise package. Excited to find, this. Exactly the tours that we can include into our trip. Heidelberg, Koblenz, Strasbourg, Breisach, and here's a great one. Yes, I think we'll have to sign up for this one. A winery tour and dinner at Schloss Johannesburg. I think we'll be in for some Riesling. I can't wait to start booking all of these things. And as we go along on our cruise, I'll be updating you day by day as to which ones we chose. We decided to arrive in Basel a day before we were to board the ship. Martin chose one of the restaurants recommended by Viking for dinner that night. He chose it for the name Schlüsselzunft. It was an old guild hall that they made into a restaurant and has a beautiful menu, delicious food, and a wonderful ceramic stove. In the morning, we decided to go to a church service in the cathedral, a gorgeous cathedral, and luckily for us, the organ was playing. We had just enough time to look at the town hall, a brilliant red edifice. It towers over the marketplace and looked fabulous in the light. Then off to the ship, which was a short tram ride from the center of town. We woke up this morning, our first morning after being on the ship, our Viking cruise along the Rhine. We are actually docked at a port in Germany called Breisach, and we did go on a bus tour this morning early on, and we went straight to the Black Forest. I know it makes you think of Grimm's fairy tales, Little Red Riding Hood and wolves, although we were reassured that there are no wolves in the Black Forest at this moment. We had a lovely walk through the forest, even though it was a little nippy and a little rainy. However, the fog and the rain actually made it seem more exciting. We saw some cuckoo clocks. We got to watch a black forest cake being made. I think particularly the waterfall on the walk was my favorite of that morning. After a wonderful lunch back on the ship, we got back on a bus, and this time, very short ride, we were in France. We went to a lovely little medieval town called Colmar. That is the home of Bertoldi, the sculptor who made the Statue of Liberty. And they actually have a 1/3 size replica in Colmar just as you enter. The town is exquisite. I've been to many places in France, and this was one of the loveliest little towns, full of half-timber homes, a beautiful St. Martin church made of the yellow stone of the region. Our guide was fantastic. Natasha told us all sorts of things about the town. We stopped for a lovely coffee, a Paris-Brest, and really enjoyed our time there. Well, I'm just looking over today. We were in Strasbourg in the morning. Amazing town, really beautiful, and the sun came out, so that made it especially beautiful. Lovely old buildings. And then as we walked around, we saw the Petit France, a little area on the island, the oldest part where the actual town started. So that was a great morning. And of course we came back here, and with the sun out, Viking has prepared lovely meals for us the whole time, and really enjoyed sitting with many different passengers, many of whom oddly enough said it was their first time, and the Viking cruise had been recommended by friends who really enjoyed it. So we sat outside on the deck, had a lovely lunch, and then it was off to a lovely place for wine tasting. Now, this winery by Rovere Blanc, he has been making wine, or his family, I should say, has been making wine for, well, since about the 1200s. He said the land has been there and has been theirs, but he has a barrel, 1752. We had a lovely tour of the cellar, and then a lovely tasting of 4 wines. And one thing I never realized was these barrels, huge oak barrels, oak from the Black Forest, and Vosges, the other forest that's near the mountain range there, those barrels can be used over and over and over again. Now with red wine you can't do that, but with white you can, because there are no tannins. So interesting piece of information. A little tour of the town. Again, pretty little town with lots of things to see, little patisseries. We happened to buy a baguette, because €1 in France for a baguette is always delicious and a bargain. For in Toronto, we can pay about $5 for a good baguette. Today we were in Heidelberg with the lovely Heidelberg Castle. It sits 330 feet above the town. It's in ruins, of course. However, there's still a lot to see and walk through. There's a beautiful Juliet window, one of the princes built for his lovely bride. The castle has a rich wine history. There's the story of Perceo, the court jester, who was told to drink water, not wine, which led to his demise just days later. We had a lovely walk around looking at taverns and cafes and little shops with pretty things to buy. And then, of course, on the way back, looking at all the pretty bridges. There's one exquisite one with lots of arches. By evening, we were in Rudesheim. We decided to go for the optional tour and dinner to a winery, Schloss Johannesburg. Martin was able to fly the drone and get beautiful shots of the wonderfully large winery. We had a tour of the vineyard and then into the cellar. Dark, large barrels, hundreds of year-old wine. Now, Schloss Johannesburg only makes Riesling, of course popular in Germany, and we heard the story of how the first Botrytis wine was made. After the tour and the tasting of 3 different Rieslings, we went into the dinner. It was lovely as the sun was setting. We enjoyed our dinner. Beautiful views of the vineyard, the town, and of course the Rhine. Certainly an evening to remember. Today was a 3R day. You might think I mean reading, writing, and arithmetic, but no, I mean the romantic Rhine River. We glided along on our Viking cruise ship. As we came through the Rhine, we saw over 20 castles. Some in ruins, some, however, have been bought and renovated and turned into hotels. They look fabulous, and what an evening it might be. However, they will cost you about 500 euros a night. So I'm just going to remember them as I saw them from the ship. Actually, I think the best view from the ship. We arrived in Koblenz, and after lunch, we're taken to the Maartech Castle. It has been renovated, and it now has many rooms exactly as they would have been when people lived in the castle. Old wine presses, unfortunately no wine, a torture room, a bedroom, the kitchen. It was wonderful to see it all made up as if somebody was living there. A fabulous tour with a fabulous view. We came back to Koblenz and had just enough time to go on the cable car all the way up to the fortress, which dates apparently back 5,000 years. And at the bottom we came down to see the beautiful square. There was a wonderful statue. It is a statue in the German corner of Kaiser Wilhelm I. And there are flags of all the German states, the European flag, and most noted, the US flag, dedicated to all the victims of 9/11. On Friday, we docked right at the port of Cologne. We could walk off the ship and in 10 minutes be at the cathedral, the Dome. It is huge and beautiful, so ornate, thousands of spires. As a matter of fact, it sat unfinished for about 280 years until it was finally finished in 1880 by the Prussians, who were taking over at the time. While we were there, there was a wedding. It meant we could not go into the choir area, but it meant we heard the organ and the beautiful soprano. And when the bride and groom came out at the end, there was a band playing. It was amazing and a wonderful experience to see. Those kinds of things that you just happen upon during a trip. In the afternoon, we walked over to the Limp Chocolate Museum. I happen to love chocolate. I think the best part was, well, of course, tasting a little bit of chocolate, but watching the conveyor belt make the chocolate, put it in the lovely forms to make the little squares, wrap it up, and then drop it into the bags that the lady was packaging up. In the evening, we went on a beer tour to 3 different brauhouses. The first one served us a fabulous dinner, people sitting at long tables, all talking and laughing. Our tour guide did point out, no one, not even the young people, were looking at their cell phones. They were all talking and laughing and drinking beer. The small glasses hold only 200 milliliters of beer, a special beer called Schloss. This is made only in Cologne, and as I say, small glasses. Do not expect a big stein. And when they get served, the waiter brings over a round tray called a crown. I've seen him pour it. They just put the glasses in, they take the beer, they open the tap, and they just turn it. So the beer pours all over the glasses, and then he brings it to your table. They continue to fill your beer glass unless you take a coaster and put it on top. As soon as they see an empty glass, you get a new one right away. When we left in the evening, it was a beautiful night, and after midnight, we passed by the cathedral, all lit up, looking splendorous as we stood at the top of our Viking cruise ship to take those fabulous photos. A lovely way to see and say goodbye to Cologne. We woke up this morning, had a leisurely breakfast, and then we sat upstairs. It was quite windy, but we got to watch ourselves sail into a beautiful town called Goringen. Now, when we arrived, it was sunny and warm. Flew the drone and got some lovely shots of windmills. And then we went into the town. We had herring. Well, Martin had herring. He bought the raw herring and he ate it just like this. And yes, that's exactly how you eat herring here in Holland. I had a bite too. It's yummy. We went after that to an artisanal cheese farm. This farm, called Berg, has been restarted in the last 10 years by the granddaughter of the original cheese farmers. The cows are gone, but they're using the cows from the neighboring farm. 220,000 liters of milk in a huge vat that gets made into about 22 rounds of delicious Gouda cheese. We got to taste, we got to watch where they make it. They are actually making this artisanal cheese and only selling it within a 25 to 30 kilometer range. So a great place to see. We took some cheese home with us. I think it'll be very enjoyable when we get home and remind us of being here in Holland. We met the rest of the people from our ship in Kinderdijk. Kinderdijk has about 19 windmills, all of which are usable and in working condition. We even got to go inside a windmill. Not only does it work, but the miller lives there. I don't know if I could live there. Stairs and stairs, very narrow, and they advise you to go down backwards. Rooms, lots of things to see, and of course beautiful pictures as we looked at all the windmills, 3 of which were actually working. Did you know they go counterclockwise? Overnight, we arrived in Amsterdam. After a wonderful final Viking breakfast, we strolled through the streets, busy with people and cars and especially bicycles. We walked up to the Dam to see the palace, and then we stopped to have lunch at a little cafe alongside the canal. Canals were filled with families and people, a variety of boats, all waving and smiling as they rode along past us. It was a perfect sunny day and a perfect way to end our Viking cruise.